Hey guys, this is Will Roundtree, your FICO certified credit specialist, credit mastery instructor for the J. Morrison Academy, author of 2 books, Credit is King, as well as Full-Time CEO, The Shit They Don't Tell You. But more importantly, I want to take you on this journey about financial literacy, the importance of credit, how to understand credit, and how to get to that money. Let's go.
Paul Thornton here, real estate mentor, real estate investor. Just wanted to drop a few gems on you today and let you know the secret to getting any real estate deal approved. That's right, any real estate deal approved. So when it comes to getting a deal approved, there are, quite a few things that really, components that go into, analyzing and getting the deal approved by the bank. So it's more than just, having the 20% down, 10% down, whatever that bank, fees are, but, and also more than just the credit, right? So we're gonna dive into a few of the components that makes up how to get any real estate deal approved. So the first thing is we got what we call a debt coverage ratio, right? So also known as a DCR. So what a debt coverage ratio is when you submit a deal to a bank, they're going to, before anything else, they're going to analyze the deal, right? So they're going to look at all the income from that potential property, and then they're going to look at all the expenses, right? So banks vary with this information, but the average is about for every $1.25 you have in expenses, the banks want to see an income of $1.25, right? So, and that's just to make sure that you can cover the debt. So kind of like what it says, debt coverage ratio. Can you cover the debt with the ratios and the of how they determine and analyze that deal? So that's one component that the banks are going to initially look at. Right. And then so say if that passes, then the next thing that we're going to look at is they're going to look at your liquidity. So what is liquidity? Even if the deal passes, the banks want to know, do you have funds in the bank? Right. So the banks are, based upon the purchase price of the deal, the banks are going to want to see a certain amount of liquid capital in the bank. And that's more so just to make sure, if anything goes wrong with the deal or if you have a vacancy or whatever, that you still have enough liquid cash to cover some of the debts for a certain amount of period of time. Next thing is appraisal, right? Which is pretty important. Say you're buying a house for, or an investment for $500,000. Well, the banks want to know, is that house worth $500,000? So they're going to call for an appraisal. And once that appraisal comes back, that's going to determine if they're going to go to the next phase of approving that particular deal. So say if you have, like I said, a deal for $500,000 and it appraises for $400,000. Well, the bank will only lend you up to what the value of that home is. So essentially, if you're adamant on getting that deal, then you would have to pay the difference from the $400,000 to the $500,000, and you would have to bring that to the table at closing. Credit profile, really important. Some of the things that you have to have as a minimum, 680 credit score, also they're going to look at your debt to income ratio, which is really, really important. So if you have, cars or installment loans or student loans, even if you have all the components, if that credit profile doesn't meet the particular standards of what they want to see from a debt to income ratio, then essentially that the banks will not approve that deal. So, with that being said, with all this information here, you can actually call the banks and, call multiple banks. All banks have different criteria, right? So me and my team, when we're looking for banks to finance deals, we call, 10 to 15 to 20 different banks, because they all have different criteria. So some of the questions kind of going down this list again, some of the questions that I'm going to ask a bank when I'm calling, looking for someone to finance a deal is, hey, what does your debt coverage ratio look like? What does that deal have to look like? So that way you can be a little more proactive. So if you find a deal and you're breaking down the numbers, you already know if it fits within that bank's criteria or not, right? Liquidity, ask them, how liquid do you have to be per dollar amount for them to approve that particular deal? The appraisal, that goes without being unsaid. And also ask them, what, as far as your credit profile, what does my credit profile need to look like? Some banks, they might go to a 660. So it all really depends on that particular bank. And then also, the debt to income ratio, right? What does my ratio have to look like? You may have to pay some things off, pay some things down just to get that installment debt down. So they'll, essentially approve you for that loan. So I hope this information was somewhat of a use to you. And thank you. And I'll see you soon.